All right, good morning. I've got 8:30, so we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. If I can have a roll call.
Sauger. Wagner.
Here.
Hendricks.
Here.
Campbell. Here. Kunkel.
Here.
Shorten.
Here.
Altough.
Here.
We have Member Altough and Member Hendricks attending remotely, so we need a motion to from Ms. Campbell, second by Mr. Kunkel. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Welcome to the meeting. Eric and Pam.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have public comment.
Doesn't look like we have any.
We have no public comment.
Okay.
Last call.
All right. Member comments.
We skipped minutes.
Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. We don't have any licenses or. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. Skip number 2. We need a motion to approve the minutes from the January 9th meeting. Ms. Wagner, seconded by Ms. Campbell. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Okay, moving on. Legislative update.
Hello. All right. Good morning, committee members, and for members of the public who are watching, my name is Alicia Schuler, Director of Public Affairs, and I'm happy to give you all your update for today. So, first things first, General Assembly back in session. It's that time of year again. So one of the things that you got to keep in mind are the deadlines. I know Pam's going to tell me, Alicia, you take deadlines as gospel, and deadlines are kind of flexible, but I always find them helpful for giving us a bit of structure. So one of the things that you need to understand is that the deadline to introduce, your substantive bills is February 9 and March 19. So House is February 9, Senate is March 19. Okay? LRB deadline has already passed. So something to keep in mind. Also, you got a deadline to get substantive bills out of committee, and that's April 5. So at least for the Senate. So, yep. Sorry, I think I did that one wrong there. Yeah. Sorry. I have not had enough coffee, guys. My apologies. All right. Next thing for you guys to keep in mind, we've got some bills of note to keep track of. There's been a lot of legislation that has been filed recently in regards to county zoning authority and getting it back after the General Assembly restricted quite a bit of it in the past session. So you're looking at House Bills 4422, House Bill 4551, and Senate Bill 2892. So again, I'm going to be keeping an eye on them as they go forward.
What was the Senate one?
Senate Bill 2892, and it is on your report.
Oh.
Sure. So again, those are, I'm keeping an eye on them, and I'll let you know where they go. Another thing that is of interest for us to keep in mind, and I don't have a bill number on this, is a piece of legislation that will be filed, at least from what I've heard, by Representative Hoffman and Representative Hammond. So they are trying to make it so that there are less funding barriers to township road projects and bridge projects. It has to do with, at least as I understand it, the local match contribution to these projects and trying to reduce that. So, but again, I have not seen this bill because it has not been formally filed yet, so more to come on that and more information will be passed on to you as I receive it.
Can I just jump in there really quick? On township bridges is where we've really focused, and the county has a responsibility on township bridges in terms of providing engineering and providing local support. There's always been an 80-20 match, and that 20% number is where we've had to have local funding, and it's often coming from the counties. And that's where we're seeing potential for some reduction in that requirement of a local match, which would help us out. So that's what we're excited about.
Thanks, Pete. As far as other good news, I've heard from Representative Ness that she has submitted a bill to the LRB, the Legislative Reference Bureau, to add the Sheriff's Office to the co-responder pilot program. Now, that is the first item in our legislative program. We are asking to be a part of that program and to receive our share of the funding, as the Sheriff's Office already has an innovative co-responder program right now through the police social work program that is doing incredible work already in our community. So more to come on that hopefully, and we'll be keeping a close eye on that. And as soon as I know what the actual bill number will be, I will let you all know. All right. On other topics, the ISACO Wind and Solar Facility Task Force, the group of multiple counties that has come together through ISACO to discuss the zoning issues that have come through with the solar and wind facility legislation, met again on January 19th. Joe McCoy is working to collect all the different items that counties want to change on that and the different ideas so that they can put together some legislation in Springfield to try to make things better for counties and for their zoning purposes. But again, I want to reiterate that there's going to be a lot of barriers to getting any legislation on this topic passed within the next year. It came out in these committee meetings that, you know, there was some backstory about, you know, when there was an agreement to put forth the legislation to restrict county zoning authority, that they didn't really want to undo it for the first year after it was put through. So there's some substantial barriers to try to make changes here. Another thing that it came out was that the legislature had been informed that counties were putting up barriers to solar and wind facilities because of their desire not to have these facilities in their counties. And they were using zoning as a way to restrict people's ability to have solar and wind facilities. Now, where they got this information, not entirely sure, but that's definitely not the case in this county where so many of our projects have passed. So, and that's not the case in other counties that came out too, like Will County as well. So there's definitely some misinformation to counter there as well. So again, more to come. And, the committee is going to continue meeting and developing recommendations for the General Assembly going forward. Okay, so next topics. Meetings with legislators. We've been very lucky in this past month. We've had the opportunity to meet with various legislators. For example, as some of you, actually most of you here did know, the McHenry County Council of Governments legislative dinner was attended by many of our legislative representatives, such as State Senator Fred Wilcox and Representative Steve Wright, Tom Weber, Jeff Kiker, and Suzanne Ness. So it was very nice to see them, interact with them, and that's where I learned that Suzanne Ness had filed the bill for the Sheriff's Office of the County Board. Also for your radars, Chairman Bueller, Chair Althoff, County Administrator Peter Austin, Shaylin Daigle, and Village President Debbie Sosina and myself will be traveling to Washington, D.C., and where we will be attending the NACO conference, but we will also get to meet with most of our federal delegation or their staff. So very excited about that, and that will be an opportunity to formally present our legislative program and talk about federal initiatives that might be of interest to, or that are definitely of interest to us. So I will keep you guys updated on where we go with that and keep you all updated. One final comment. As far as the deadlines, I am sorry I did misspeak. The deadline to introduce bills is actually February 9th, so that's coming, and that's in both chambers. The deadline to get substantive bills out of the House is March 15th, and the Senate deadline is actually April 5. So just wanted to clarify that one for you.
What was the Senate one, sorry?
I'm sorry?
What was the Senate deadline for the out of committee?
That is April 5. Okay. And there's one final item that I want to put on your radars, but I don't believe the sheriff is here to speak on it. I do want to keep an eye on a certain piece of federal legislation that is House Bill HB 4415. It's at the federal level, and it is in relation to police asset forfeiture, and it's something that the Sheriff's Office brought to our attention. I will definitely be keeping an eye on it as it goes forward, and it's something to know more about, but more to come on that. Pam, is there anything else you wanted me to add to that?
I would just add, asset forfeiture has been a real tool that the Sheriff's Office has used, and it's frankly it's helping us fund some of our training facility. And any restrictions or conditions on how asset forfeiture could be used, I think we want to be mindful of. We've used it very thoughtfully and appropriately, and additional rules around that would be something that we'd really want to understand why.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the routine consent agenda. Are there any items that we want to remove for discussion?
7.1.
7.1?
7.2.
Yeah, we might as well talk about
7.2.
both of them.
Seeing that we're removing both of them, let's go ahead and start with 7.1. Get a motion? First from Ms. Wagner. Matt gives us a second.
So, good morning. I don't, you guys are gonna come up or stay up there?
Got some handouts. Can I hand them to you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you.
I guess I'll start. So I was reading this, I understand the comparisons and how we should be competitive with other counties. Just, I'm concerned that this is coming just a few months after we approve the budget. So can you tell me why this was not approached and included in the budget? Because I worry, that's 400, over almost $500,000 that we will be, or 423,000 that we'll be taking out of the fund, right? General fund and reserve. So I'd like to know why this wasn't talked about in the budget season, and then where will this be funded in future years?
It wasn't brought up in the budget because this is something we weren't aware of. So much of the increases that led to the incongruence, let's say, between us and Lake County, us and Kane County, and us and DuPage County came this year with their budgets. I talk to the state's attorneys. We meet twice a year, but sort of going through some of the budgetary stuff has not been a priority for me. I think that probably as the state's attorney, this is probably this has been maybe a blind spot for me over the course of probably the 8 years. I came in and my whole sort of idea was, look, we got to cut the budget and we have to be responsible stewards. I think we've demonstrated that. When I first came in, we cut the budget. We voluntarily gave up, I believe, 3 positions. I presented the exact figures to Lisa Ryan, who's a whiz with all this stuff, could get up here and go chapter and verse just in terms of where we saved across the board, in terms of administrative costs, in terms of salary. But I am starting to realize that the market has shifted considerably with state's attorneys. So speaking of just one of those conferences, I was down at an Illinois State's Attorney Conference, and I was talking to all the other state's attorneys. And I remember when I used to work for Lou Bianchi had an accordion folder like this, and it was full of resumes, and anytime you came in to complain, like that thing would just be sitting out on his desk, you know what I mean? So it was just sort of like, you take a look at that and then you think about whether or not what you had to say made a lot of sense. But everybody, so there's sort of a dearth of candidates in the state's attorney market, and I think that that's a function of a number of things. I think one is much of the bad press and sort of this ubiquitous sense, especially among younger people, that the criminal justice system is somehow flawed, that it's racist. I mean, it's demonstrably untrue, at least in McHenry County, I can say that. But it's not as attractive to young people. So what we used to be able to offer people coming out of law school was like, look, we'll get you a ton of experience. We're going to give you, we're going to get you in. Yeah, the pay's not right, but we're going to get you a ton of experience. You're going to be able to get up on your feet. You're going to be able to talk. We also used to be able to say it's a reasonable work-life balance, all right? Those two things are different, and so the private market has just totally outpriced us. Being a state's attorney means that you have to, first of all, you have to show up to work, All right, so there's no more work from home option, which is incredibly attractive to younger people. You have to show up to work because we have court calls to do. We deal with sensitive material that you just can't look at home. In addition to that, our job is to stand shoulder to shoulder with victims, and our job is to stand shoulder to shoulder with witnesses. Our job is to be present in the community, because fundamentally, when you think, I think there's just a misunderstanding of what it is that the state's attorney's office does. I think that people don't recognize the profoundly sacrificial work of the state's attorney's office. So a lot of the experience now, especially for people in Gen Z and Gen X, is experience that they don't want. So if you think that being a state's attorney doesn't have an emotional cost, like I'm here to tell you it does, and I know I'm getting far afield from your question, but I'll get back to it. But it does. I've seen pictures of child porn. I've had witnesses collapse in the office out of grief and pain. I've seen pictures of a dead kid who was beaten to death and had to deal with that. And so, in order to do the job, you have to have you have to be somebody that is incredibly committed to community, and who is incredibly committed to just the idea and the importance of getting justice on behalf of others. And again, the whole idea is sacrifice. And so when we're going to younger people who want to work from home, who want to make a little bit of money, who are very career oriented, but also far savvier than I ever. I couldn't believe anybody offered me a job when I was 25 coming out of law school. They have 10, 5, 20-year plans, you know? And so the market has just totally outpaced us in terms of being attractive to younger people. And so now, and we're already not as attractive to, let's say, the younger set of people, because we're not in Chicago metropolitan area. There's also a sacrifice to coming out to McHenry County. A lot of times we're looking for people who are from here and who want to stay here and want to make a career here. So anyway, I don't mean to say like, woe is me, but the point is that we're in a difficult position. And so if we're unable to at least meet and or match what we're doing with who we're fundamentally competing with, and that's Lake, Kane County, DuPage County, maybe Will County, we're gonna have a hard time filling all of the spots. Currently, we're down 3, and the resumes that are coming in in a trickle. I've spent more time over the last 2 years thinking and doing things to try to recruit people than I spent in the first 6 years of my time as the McHenry County State's Attorney. So that's why we're asking for it now. That's why it's so critically important, because there's also I also fear that if we're not able to match them, there's going to be attorneys that are already here that are committed to the office that are just going to be thinking to themselves, you know, they're going to give me more money over there, and maybe they'll change my position or whatever the case may be. So it's also a question of retaining, and I don't want there to be sort of a slow slide and a decline in terms of the services that the office offers. Where the money is going to come from in the future, to go back to your immediate question, I don't know. I think you guys would be in a much better position to answer that than I would. I'm not an expert in terms of how McHenry County does its budgets, but I can tell you, and just to give you the heads up, I'm going to be asked, we'd like to maintain this, and I may even be asking for more. I really think that if you want to sort of see that the McHenry County State's Attorney's Office, to me, is a foundational piece of what the county does. The safety in the community and the ability to feel safe is a prerequisite and a precondition to anything else that the county is doing and to anything that anybody in the county wants to enjoy. And so I think that if we're going to make an investment in something in McHenry County, I think this would be one of the things this is one of the things that should have a priority, in my respectful opinion. I also think that the quality of an attorney, especially in the state's attorney's office, is incredibly important, especially these days. The job has only gotten harder, and I want people that are able to discern. I want people that are able to discern the serious cases that need focus, the cases that you're able to plead out. I want people to be able to discern defendants who are innocent and where cases are not charged correctly. And if we're going to continue to lose that, it's not good news for defendants either. because our job, again, is to do justice. And if we're not able to look at these cases and spend the requisite time on these cases with more and more evidence coming in because of body cameras and all the rest of it, we are spending more time looking at body cameras too. But if we're not able to discern the priority from the non-priority, from the cases that shouldn't even be here in the first place, not only our defendants are gonna suffer, but I think also victims are gonna suffer. So I'd like to, and the more I've been thinking about this, I'd like to not only I'd like to meet these counties at this point. And in the future, I'd like to start competing with the private market. And I know that's probably scary for you guys to think about, but I do think that that's important.
Thank you. What is the turnover rate? If you're down 3 people right now?
Yeah, it's hard to say. So there was like sort of the great resignation of 2020, and we lost a lot of people. We came back and we were fully staffed up until about 3 weeks ago. And then we had a few people who are moving on. So one gal has a very sick father in another state, and she's going there. Another gal is going to work for Elgin and the reason that she's doing that is because of the pay. And then I forget how we lost the last one. Oh, and then there was one guy who was having some health problems and decided to retire. So that's it. I do think we have a train, like as I said again, I've spent more time trying to recruit and retain over the last 2 years than ever. We have a training program, we have a mentorship program. I think we've done a good job of retaining a good core. Most of the people that we lose are not people that have been here for 2 or more years. Rather, they're people who usually are not from McHenry County, who sort of came out for the job and left. I think we've probably done a better job of retaining than I've seen in other that I've seen since I've been in the McHenry County State's Attorney's Office. So there's an enormous turnover in the State's Attorney's Office just by nature. A lot of people sort of think to themselves, it's a good job to have for the first 2 or 3 years. You get up on your feet, you get in front of judges, you learn how to prosecute a case, you learn the rules of evidence, and then you can and then the idea has always been to sort of flip that into a job into the private market. It's a select group of people that want to stay and want to make a career out of this.
Just one last question. How many attorneys do you have?
34 souls on board, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Including that.
Including me, yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, for me, I'm all in favor of these people who work diligently for the county getting their pay raises. And in fact, I'd like to be on the tip of the spear dollar-wise of what we pay our attorneys, so I could see more. What I can't do and what I can't see is an emergency appropriation at this time, because it doesn't really constitute an emergency, because everybody in law enforcement, especially on the county level, it's as much a vocation as it is an employment. So as you said, getting people and retaining people is really about, they have the spirit for their, especially in a defense attorney case, that's a vocation. It's not people who say, man, I want to make a bunch of money as an attorney. They don't even have a stopping point through here at that point. I'm all for these pay raises, but they have to go through the budgetary process so we as a board can allocate those funds, can find those funds to do that. If we know that in advance, by the time we come to approving a budget, then those numbers are doable. But to take them now as an emergency, a case in point, our business. We do snow, so our budget is March to March. It has to be. But by the time we hit February, when we get a snow like we just got, it taxes the hell out of our budget. It's not an emergency. Even though we broke an axle, we broke some equipment, they're not emergencies. And that comes out of that budget and it's done. Now, because of this little snow event, bigger snow event, we will increase our budgets because we're going to have more repairs come March. I'm happy to do that. Happy to do it for both defense attorneys and prosecutors. Happy to do that. I think we should stay on the cutting edge of this. The SAFE-T Act has brought a ton more work for your people. But right now, I think we have to dig down with the people we have. We have to let them know that we are not unsympathetic to their financial woes. The folks you've lost, we've lost one due to finance. The other two had extenuating circumstances. No fault of dollars and cents per se, they left us. Now we, of course, have to attract new ones. I think now they're going to have to know, along with their vocation, that this board is committed to giving them more money in the futures. But right now, I cannot vote yes for an emergency response to this. Carolyn?
I don't know if anybody was
Yeah.
gonna. Okay, so we're gonna see this twice, at least I am, because I'm sure this is going to finance as well, probably. Yes, okay. So-
And administrative services.
And administrative services. So I think because this is such a big ask, I'm kind of wanting to reserve a solid yes or no, simply because we're gonna have a really robust discussion again in finance. Because I understand sometimes things don't fit neatly into when the budget process comes about. And sometimes you learn information that can change kind of where you think you need to go. And so in this case, I felt the same way. It's really helpful, it would have been helpful if we'd gotten this back during the budget process so that, because we need to have this conversation about how we're going to support our staff. We've been talking about this for at least the year and a half that I've been on the board, and I know when I was at the district, we were talking about the same thing. And the pressure of trying to retain quality people and pay them something that's going, that they're doing a great job and compensating them appropriately. How do we do that when we're under constant pressure to never raise taxes? And how do we, it's very difficult to attract people, it's difficult to retain them. We've talked about even, just in administration, we bring them in, we train them, and they go somewhere else where they can get more money. So I think this is a larger discussion about how we address this issue that we're not paying people enough to be competitive, whether it's in the state's attorney's office or other situations. But this looks like this is a fairly significant gap that's accumulated over time. And you said, I don't know, you mentioned that some things had been changing at Lake and maybe Kane. Did they increase by that much in a single? Okay. Because they probably realize that they've been falling behind for years and they need to make that change. So, I guess what I think that, because the question does become, where do we get those, how do we get those ongoing constant source of revenues to make sure that we maintain that increase? Okay, and I'm not exactly where that is right now, and I don't know, is it better just to do it this way, like your colleagues in the different counties, take the plunge, do it, get it in place, and make sure though that we can kind of identify where those revenues are going to come from, or do we do it incrementally? Maybe half of this now, and then bring it up to speed by the budget time. I don't know, right? And so this is a big ask, and I just would like to be able to, like I said, we're going to explore it again in finance. So this is great information, so I appreciate it. And I do appreciate the concern. I think this is the problem we've been having, and we have a really hard discussion on how do we get the support of the levy that we need to retain our employees, to attract and retain.
If I can address, the reason it's an emergency is because I fear, and I think the leadership in the office fears, that when word gets around that Kane and Lake and Will and DuPage are paying what they're paying, every opening in any of those counties is going to get an applicant from our county. I spoke to my counterpart in Kane and DuPage about this going through their budget process. And what both of them told me is they kept this very low key because they didn't want other counties to be able to match them so quickly. We have taken people from those counties, they've taken people from us. There are 8 people in the civil division. In the end of 2022 and in 2023, I lost 3 people out of my civil division. One to Kane County for $10,000 more, one to the City of Chicago Legal Department for $14,000, and one to Hoffman Estates for $40,000 more. We'll never do that. We'll never do that. But that was 3 out of 8 that I lost.
When was this? I'm sorry, Norman.
In the end of 2022 and through 2023. Yeah, and those were just, and now, I honestly, if I were in my division and I were sitting there making my $70,000 a year and I had a chance to go down to Kane, right down there for $80,000, why wouldn't I apply? I mean, they may love me and Pat and Lisa and Randy, but they don't love us that much. That's why it's an emergency, because I just feel like this year we're gonna have a bloodbath if we don't try to keep our people.
We saw none of this come the budget, and we're
No, we didn't know
22,
about it. They kept it low key.
I know, they budgeted, they did it through their budget process, they didn't do it as an emergency to do this, so yeah, they kind of they were playing smart business with us,
Yeah.
there's no doubt. Now, we have to catch up with some smart business, I believe that. But again, to go back now and tell taxpayers, yeah, we just raised your taxes and now we have another emergency, $500,000 here. We have another emergency, $2.5 million for a voter center, and we're only in January, folks. We've got another 11 months worth of emergencies to deal with. It's not tenable on our side of the table. We can explain these things to constituents if they're presented to us, even on the down low, hey, we gotta get these people more money. We can speak in our individual committees, we can make sure that all goes to, at this point, it's moot because they've moved on. But Kane County did not raise their taxes, and they passed the raises of these people in a normal budget session. So their constituents knew going forward, these people were making more, but it wasn't gonna cost them anymore as far as their taxes. That's the way we have to, and I believe for the whole law enforcement division, I've been down that rabbit hole. I understand that's not, again, like I said, that has to be a vocation. You have to want to do that. But you also have to make a living do that. I watched police officers for years, myself included, work construction full-time while I was an officer because you can't make enough money at it. I'm all for you, but you gotta let us do it through the process because we answer to all those people in McHenry County behind us. You guys could just talk to us. We answer to the rest of them behind us. Again, off my soapbox here, happy to do it, need to do the regular process for it.
I'm gonna go to Pete first, because I saw his hand pop up when Carolyn was speaking, and then I'll come over here. Pete?
I wanted to point out a couple things. And first of all, this on the one hand, this was a surprise to us. I think, as Patrick said, it kind of snuck up on us and we didn't know what was going on. But on the other hand, and I see Cheryl's joined the table, we did know we need to look at all of our non-union wages. And we did commission kind of a second look at our compensation study, which is well underway right now. As Patrick approached Cheryl and I about this a few weeks ago, we kind of said, well, we got the compensation study going anyways. This was, the non-union compensation adjustments are intended to go in on July 1. We could just kind of make this run parallel to that and make it start March 4th or whatever's projected. So I guess I'm saying it isn't coming from nowhere. It isn't coming from nowhere. We knew that there was some out of adjustment, and we knew that there would be some cost. Didn't know what, but we knew there would be some cost. On the subject of cost, how do we pay for it? That's a really good question, and I know Carrie's in the room behind Cheryl. Carrie and I talked about this some, and probably if this moves ahead as presented, we'll probably have to make some adjustments to our capital fund. We have an intended $4.2 million transfer from the capital fund to the general fund. We'll monitor the situation and maybe that capital fund bears a little bit of this cost. So, maybe a project or two gets delayed at the expense of higher wages for attorneys. But from my perspective, I do think that's a plausible path. And I do think that would work. Carrie, I don't know if you want to add in anything on that. Or did I say it all?
I think you said it all.
Okay.
I think just we have the opportunity because in this budget, we have a capital plan that for a couple of years, we haven't been fully funding. And so with the fund balance, where it's at, we have all of our projects funded, but if this goes through, we can look to reprioritize some of the projects and then revisit. Obviously, salary is an ongoing expense, but then revisit it in the next 25 budget.
you know, this has a price tag on it, but we won't realize all those dollars because these there's 3 vacancies now. We're saving money today, and it's going to take a while. Whatever happens, there's going to be vacancies, and it's going to take a while to fill these positions.
Okay, I'm going to go to Cheryl and then Eric and Pam.
Yeah, mine just real quick. Peter already said the comp study is in process. We felt that this was something that was viable to bring forward in advance of that, knowing that if there's a possibility that they're going to bleed between now and July. And so this was kind of a Band-Aid between now and July, because it would have come forward in the July comp study. So, so yes, like Peter said, this was going to come forward for the comp study.
Question for Cheryl.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how often do we, because I know this is an ongoing, comp studies are ongoing.
Every 2 years, we do a
And so
formal
we
comp
learned
study.
something new that, you know, that when, and because we tend to shoot for the middle,
50%, yes.
it's very easy for us to slip. So every 2 years, we oftentimes are finding ourselves trying to catch up.
Yes. And then
So-
this is the year.
So this
for
is
that.
not unusual.
This is every 2 years. This is our year to get caught up again. And this is where they would have gotten caught up. But in the meantime, the potential for them to lose people between now and July is high.
I have a question.
Okay, Kelly has a quick question. And
So
then
the
we're gonna go to
comp
Eric.
study, when are those proposed increases going to be effective?
July 1.
Is that already built into the budget?
That's something,
No.
usually a lot
It can be
of,
absorbed.
yeah, a lot of those are absorbed by vacancies in the departments. So this would be a little, they may have a lot of vacancies by the time July comes. But usually it's absorbed through vacancies.
I'm going to go to Mr. Hendricks. He's got his hand up.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Patrick, what positions right now are we recruiting for? Is it entry-level roles or more senior roles?
2 mid-level roles and 1 entry level.
Okay. And then do you plan on the state's attorney's office expanding in terms of state's attorneys? Do you anticipate additional state's attorneys being hired? Outside of like new positions, I should say.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I would say likely not, and if we were going to come and ask for additional positions, it would be slight. Most of I think the office has been built out over the last 2 years in response to the Safety Act, and barring sort of any new legislation, I think we're at about the right size and shape.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay. Ms. Altoff.
Thank you. Patrick, also to you, can you tell me what happens to the workload of those people remaining if we don't approve these new hires?
I think I heard the question, which is talk about the workload of the people that would remain. Well, it would only get, I mean, obviously it would expand. Part of the reason why I try to take so few vacations is because when I get back, I just have to do the work that I had missed over the last 2 weeks and, or whatever the case may be. And so, but yeah, it obviously would expand. You know, that we have the type of job where mistakes, oversights, omissions have serious consequences. And so overworked state's attorneys is usually not something that we can tolerate.
Concur. Peter, question is to you. Overall, what's the hit to the budget on the proposal? What do you think for the balance of the fiscal year? You know, weighing the current loss of people versus the increase in salaries. Where do you think the overall?
Hey, Pam, we're having a hard time hearing you. Your signal is a little bit spotty.
Yeah. I think I understood
Okay,
what's the
never
hit.
mind.
Well, what's the hit to the budget? And we have projections at a little over 100,000, a little over 400,000. So this is probably going to be approaching 600,000 if everything was filled immediately. And that's not going to be the case. There is going to be some lag between getting positions filled, and there's likely to be other vacancies that occur during the year. So it's going to be significant, and it's likely to be over 500,000. What I'm doing is I'm combining the public defender and the state's attorney there because they usually have worked kind of in harmony. I will say again, I think Gary has a very thoughtful approach about, if the board wants to move ahead with this, the capital fund will be the likely source of additional dollars. We call it an emergency because we are shifting new monies into the operating budget. And that's just the budget jargon that we use, is that emergency appropriation. But I think, as we said many times, the strength of our fund balance is going to be our answer if this is a path that the board wants to go.
One last question here.
So I agree with Mr. Kunkel in the fact that I would prefer this to go through the budget process where the whole board can talk about the whole budget as a whole. If you're talking now about 600,000, between 500 and 600,000 increase, that is maybe, we have to think about future years too. We have to think about not just how this is going to be taken out of the capital fund and prioritize capital projects, but what's going to happen year after year after year. We can't defer capital projects year after year because we will run out of money. So I just have a difficult time passing this without going through the budget. I understand the need. I don't want overworked state's attorneys. I appreciate everything you do, but we also have to pay attention to what the budget and the money that we're spending and keep an eye on the fund balances also.
Anyone else? Okay. Being no other comments or questions, move to a roll call.
Wagner,
No.
Hendricks,
No.
Kunkel, Campbell,
Yes.
Altoff,
Yes.
Shorten.
Yes. That's 3-3.
We'll go for 2 more committees.
Yeah, for 2 more committees, then we'll go to the board with that 3-3 tie. And then 7-2, need a motion?
I'm willing to let that go for what we've just done here, unless you need a motion.
Okay,
To
take a
vote,
motion,
yes.
do I have a second? Any questions or comments you want to
Just
step
a
forward?
quick comment, I'm not going to repeat what our esteemed state's attorney had said, but it is a challenging environment to recruit and to keep the people that you have. We are in competition, always have been. My retention level is better. The people I'm hiring as of late are not just out of law school. I'm able to get people that are close to retirement. And that's something new in the 30-some years that I've been doing this. The courts, I think, overall, the Administrative Office of Illinois Courts has noticed this, and Judge Camille was instrumental in getting us 95,000, approximately 95,000, a little bit over, of money that we were able to put into the public defender budget. So I think this problem that Mr. Canale is talking about it's statewide and needs to be addressed in order for us to stay competitive. We need this, and there's a historical parity between the offices because we do the same type of thing between the state's attorney and the public defender's office, just on 2 different sides. So you have to keep that in mind when considering this type of thing. It's really all I have.
Thank you.
Any questions? All right, seeing no questions or comments, roll call, please.
Kunkel,
No.
Campbell,
Yes.
Wagner,
No.
Hendricks,
No.
Altoff,
Should you do a thumbs up or thumbs down?
We can't hear you, Pam.
Oh, yes, can you hear me now? Yes, yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
yes.
Shorten.
Yes. Moving on to presentations, we have Kathy Keith who's coming up on the Safety Act, but I'm going to ask Sandra Salgado real quick to step up. She's got a couple quick updates
5 minutes.
No, okay.
from the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you for letting me sneak in. If there's no questions, it'll be under 5 minutes. And Pete, thank you for showing us some sunshine.
Sorry, getting that shadow on my face now.
Yeah. So first I wanted to introduce you to Carrie Jonas. If you have not met Carrie Jonas, she's the executive assistant to the sheriff. Carrie started with us in special services, which is our training division. And when Sheriff Titleman got elected, he recruited her over. So a loss to the training department, but our gain in the business office. So here's a face. So when you call and you get Carrie, you know who you're talking to.
Can you repeat the title? I'm sorry.
Oh, the executive assistant to
Thank you.
his right-hand person. So some quick updates. Wanted to update you guys on Lake County. So we are at our 150. We are also at our housing numbers that we were prior to the Safety Act. So we've got a full house. As of this morning, we were at 331. I met with Carrie, the Director of Finance, because in the Finance Committee, they asked us to give reports on expenses to keep everyone updated. So I think we came up with a good process. I'll make sure I get in front of you guys as well, so that everybody knows what's going on. So haven't even invoiced them yet.
We're gonna plan a little bit of a Lake County Jail budget update at the Finance Committee a week from Thursday.
Okay. Well, we haven't invoiced them yet for the first month. So once we start doing that, we'll be able to provide better reports and show you expenses versus revenue. As far as the regional training facility, so we are moving forward. We still expect the range to be open in April. The sheriff and undersheriff have been working very hard to get annual memberships for those who are not part of the Regional Training Facility Board. We have secured 3 of them so far, and this is really exciting for us. So the fee is based on per deputy, per se. So we have Island Lake, Fox River Grove, and Marengo on board so far. Very excited about that. We have hired a new dispatch supervisor. If you remember, Jeremy Morse, who was with us for a long time, got recruited by ETSB. I don't know if they recruited him, but he is over there and doing well. We have Melissa Heimelwright. I might be saying that wrong. Is that correct? Okay. She just started, so we're going to give her a little time to get comfortable in her position, and then I'll bring her over here for you guys to meet her as well.
What's her position?
She's the supervisor in dispatch. Okay. Yep. I think she's like on week 1, so she's very busy. Marine unit, so I wanted to give you this update. As you may recall, we have gone out to bid twice for our Marine unit. That is a relationship we have with the city of McHenry, where they are allowing us to build the building on their site at Miller Point in McHenry. We are going to pay for that. It's going to give our Marine unit their first bricks and mortar building with official toilets, which is exciting for them. It's also going to give the city of McHenry a public restroom for that boat launch. They have lots of plans for that park. When we went out to bid first, the first bid opening was shock and awe at $1 million. That is not what we had budgeted. So we went back with our design architect. We redesigned some of the building, and it dropped it to like $890,000. So we sat with the city of McHenry, and they came up with a creative way to do a design build, which is becoming a very attractive way of doing projects. And the initial dollars look like it's actually within our budget, our original budget from 2 years ago. How do you like that, Carrie?
Which was, what was that? What was that?
$500,000.
Oh.
So that also includes, we have agreed to split the cost of the sewer connection and the well. So you will be seeing that hopefully soon. We're gonna be meeting with the city of McHenry and our construction manager that we have on board to kind of do next steps, but we're hoping within the next couple of months we can do that. City of McHenry is looking to pave the parking lot out there. Right now, it's gravel. So, we may not make it this season, most likely we won't, but we may be able to squeeze it in at the end of next season. Marine unit ends around the end of October. Depending on weather, maybe we can get started so that in 2025, we can have a building. Yeah, and that's already budgeted. That's been in our budget here for several years. So very excited about that. Any questions? Great. Thank you.
Do you have anybody from?
Thanks, Sandy.
Do you have anybody from Kane yet?
We don't. We have the agreement. We don't anticipate having any inmates from Kane yet. They thought they were gonna have to use us, but they had a change of circumstance, so we'll let you know if that happens. We're also working with, I think I told you last time, Great Lakes Naval Base on that federal contract, but that takes a little longer. They gotta go through DC, so that one will be before you probably in the next 3 months.
And I forgot total capacity, because you're at 331.
650. Yep. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, now if we can have Kathy Keith and Mr. Wallace step forward. We have a presentation on the Safety Act data dashboard.
Morning. So Pete and Scott thought you guys might be interested in seeing our new dashboard that we just recently put out on our current website. Here. This is a link on the Circuit Clerk's webpage right now. We're getting ready to launch our new website the next couple of weeks, so it's currently linked to our current website. And it's data that just refreshes. I can't take credit for the layout of this. We were kind of copying what Kane County did. Kane County was the beta site for Safety Act stuff. So they've had this dashboard going for a while, and some of the other counties were kind of looking at putting out similar information just to give a baseline, as to what we were seeing with the Safety Act. Dan's got a lot more detailed information beyond that, but so it refreshes every night, and it's basically looking at all cases that appear in initial appearance court. Let's see what we're doing here. Here we go. I don't operate very well without a mouse. Oh, here we go. So everything that then appears in initial appearance court, you can select. Here, Dan, you want to run this thing for me?
Certainly, I'll be happy to.
You can select, it defaults to all agencies. So right up at the top, if you can get up to, there we go. So all agencies, you can select it down to specific arresting agencies, so you can redo the stats to just see the sheriff or just see each of the different arresting agencies. So for starters, it breaks out just the cases that have appeared in initial appearance to court. It's defaulting to everything from September 18th to the current date, but you can also change those dates if you want to just see a month or a week, or however you want to break it down. And then it goes on further then to look at of what's showing up in an initial appearance court, what's the most serious charge. Kane County had it broken out showing specifically what was Domestic Violence Act charges. So we've kind of got that highlighted out the way they did, looking at domestic battery type charges versus everything else. But you can also see more specifics of everything, all the different types of charges, but it kind of lumps together some of the more common ones. And then it also, below that, looks at the class of the offense. So you can see the bulk of them are Class A misdemeanors, but you can kind of see the breakdown of, what class felony versus, what kind of cases are showing up in there. And then the bottom two charts then show of these cases that appeared in initial appearance court, how many of them did the state's attorney file a petition to detain on, or did they just go straight to, requesting conditions, setting conditions for release? So how many had petitions to detain, And then of that 202 that there were petitions to detain filed on, the next chart then shows how many were granted by the court. So how many were detained and how many were released with conditions. So that's kind of the breakdown of, you know, the basics that our little dashboard shows. And then Dan's got a lot more specific statistics in his PowerPoint.
Yeah, a couple things here real quick. I mean, the information that Kathy and her folks have put together is absolutely fantastic for a court administrator to look at and get an idea as to what actually is taking place. And I'm very pleased to report that this is exactly what we thought we would see. We knew it was going to be the domestic batteries. We had already done that homework before the Safety Act was implemented. So we knew that it was going to be more of the Class A misdemeanors that we were going to be seeing rather than the Class X felonies. So it's nice to see that prediction is what comes to be.
If you look at Kane counties, you can definitely see the difference between our counties, just not only in the volume, I mean, boy, it's striking the difference in the volume of the cases that they're dealing with and the severity of the cases that they deal with. So kind of the difference between counties.
Absolutely. The other thing too that I found was, I'll say, interesting, and I need to do a little more homework on this, but it's this graph here. So out of the individuals that have appeared in initial appearance court since September 18th, 80 of them were detained. Now, if you think back prior to the implementation of the Safety Act, we're talking about bond. You know, we're talking about taking money from somebody and releasing them. I can guarantee sitting here without even looking at the data, this was not what was happening. People were getting out. People were paying the money, they were getting out. We didn't detain 80 people on no cash bail, or on a high bond to keep in custody. So this might become a little problematic because part of the statute indicates that if somebody is held in pretrial status, they have to be brought to trial within 90 days. So forget the speedy trial statute, okay? The pretrial statute says 90 days. That is a significant impact to Pat, the state's attorney, and public defender's office. Because now all of a sudden, you've got to take what might have been a lengthier period of time between pretrial and disposition in compressing that point. The other part of that statute says if the 90 days is exhausted, that person must be released. Not may, not can, not could, must be released. Well, if we're holding somebody on a Class X murder and they're in for 90 days, and there's part of the statute that some of that time can be told depending on continuances and those kinds of things, and then it gets charged to one side or the other. But at the same time, all of a sudden you have somebody on a very, very serious charge that's looking at being released, and yes, they can be released on conditions, electronic monitoring, GPS, and those kinds of things. But again, we're talking the worst of the worst here. So that's something that we're going to need to keep an eye on. So,
Ask a question
of course you can. I love questions.
It looks like that the most serious of the offenders are being detained, which is the goal of the Safety Act, which that's good. But so if they only have 90 days to present their case and for the state's attorney, do you anticipate that they may then change that law for the speedy trial to extend the 90 days? Or do you hope for that?
I don't know what the legislators are going to do. I literally just had a conversation yesterday where I said very publicly, it would be very nice if they would ask, us what we thought. We're the ones that have to implement it. We don't get asked. And so I don't know if there's anything in the mix. I know that it's going to take a lot of litigating to clean up some of the language, and I literally just this morning got a notice from the appellate courts that they're seeing a tremendous increase in the number of cases filed because of the pretrial
We've been sending a lot of appeals. lot of appeals on detention-related appeals.
If you're
So, yeah,
detained,
they've got to be backed up,
they are.
everything.
Does
So
it-
you mean when they are detained, then they appeal it?
Yes, there's a very simple process to appeal that detention. So yeah, it's a very easy process, and so there are a lot of people who are appealing it.
So what you said was, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So what you said was if they are detained, then it has to go to trial within 90 days, except that, obviously with continuances and whatever, that might extend that. What was it if they were held pre-change in the law?
It's 120?
I think so.
Yeah,
It's
I believe it's
120 days versus
days.
120
But the same kind of rules though, that one side, if you ask for continuance, gets charged, it gets told, if there's good cause and all. So it's not just a flat 120 days. It could be.
Right.
So.
That's the difference in the time frame that you had, 90 versus 120, aside from any of the continuances.
Actually, I
And
think
the 90 days was in the new law?
90 days is in the new law. And actually, I do have that somewhere here. Let me just bring that up real fast. Oh, actually, I thought I did put it in here, but I guess I didn't. Okay. So a couple other things for us. I want to thank the Sheriff's Department and the jail. Sergeant Fitz gave me these numbers. So this is their average jail population by month. Just McHenry County residents, okay? So not looking at anybody else. Right after September 18th, you can see there's a drop. I want to be very, very careful here, okay? Yes, there's a reduction. It's not a tremendous reduction, and there's one thing that's missing from these numbers, okay? There is a transient population of failure to appears that funnel in and out of the jail every day, okay? These are people that get picked up on a warrant. They don't go to initial appearance court. The warrant comes out of courtroom 301 or 304 because they failed to appear, and they go back to that courtroom, 301 or 304. They don't go to initial appearance court. So there's always this ebb and flow. I'm not too surprised to see this because I know there was a lot of things in local law enforcement. Some of them were told, don't arrest anybody right after this law implemented, because there's a lot of concern over, if you arrest somebody, if it's detainable, what's not detainable. If you detain somebody for a non-detainable, you can get sued and this, that, and the other thing. So there's still a big learning curve with this. So I just want to put that caveat out there.
I feel like we've gotten over that hump now. That was kind of September, October, November, there was a lot of confusion about what forms to use, but I think we've kind of gotten over that hump a little bit.
Yep. Here's active warrants that we currently have in the county. You can see there's a drop in September as well. I'm not surprised by that because all of a sudden, if you fail to appear for court, we couldn't issue a warrant. We had to issue a summons. And then we had to issue a second summons, and then maybe we can do a warrant. So I'm not too surprised to see this. I think this is going to also kind of go through an ebb and flow. We'll keep an eye on that over the months too. Failures to appear, same kind of thing. There's a pretty decent drop in failures to appear between September and October, and actually August and October. Not surprised because we're not allowed to issue failure to appear warrants. If you are required to appear in court today and you fail to show up, we have to issue a summons. The judge has no discretion. And then if we send you a summons and you don't appear, we can send you a second summons. So now, we've kind of taken that process and drawn it out. And then there's a whole thing too about how to cure a failure to appear if you're a criminal defendant. So not too surprised by this. But I think over time, we'll see that start to pick back up as well. Summonses, yep, there's your increase. We went from not doing them to doing them.
And some of them are going out, they have the option, they either go out regular mail, certified mail, or they get sent for personal service. I think we're gonna see some increases in what the mailroom's cost is, or the amount of certified mailings that we're doing has increased dramatically from our office. And now we're starting to get invoices from other counties and other states for personal service summons. Dan's office is picking those up, so I feel like his budget's going to take a hit for what we're paying for the personal service on. We've never done this kind of, we literally didn't do hardly any summons in criminal. But yeah, this is kind of a new unforeseen budget effect.
Yeah, and I expect that that'll go up.
Right, only increasing.
So, a couple things, prior to the implementation of the Safety Act, we had Right Score. We did some calculations, I did some calculations, and, I'm pleased again to say that calculations are pretty much spot on. On average, we see 5 individuals who appear in initial appearance court every day, Monday through Saturday, and on holidays. The highest we've seen is 13, the lowest is 0. So there's, again, this natural ebb and flow, but the average is 5. It's very important to note too, that initial appearance court is not Right Score. The way it works is somebody comes into the court system, they've been picked up on a new charge, a complaint gets filed, the judge takes a look at that complaint, issues what we call a probable cause order. Once that probable cause order is in effect, then it moves into initial appearance court, at which point in time State's Attorney Public Defender's Office have some statutory obligations. The public defender has to have a meaningful conversation with the defendant, have some conversation about release conditions. The state has to make a determination as to whether or not to file a petition to detain or a petition to set conditions. If they file a petition to detain, we are required by statute to hold a hearing where they proffer evidence. So again, this isn't just business as usual. These are new hearings. And at 5, I'll say on average, it's probably 15 minutes to run a hearing. Now, it can certainly go longer. I know I sat in one that certainly went longer than that, where it was a domestic battery case involving a teenage child, and they offered up pictures and statements and those kinds of things. So it was certainly more involved than somebody just getting arrested on a felony DUI. Okay, so certainly an impact and workload to both of those offices. Period of peers, this is coming out of Kathy's. You can see, or Kathy's information, you can see that we've seen some increases, not surprisingly. And I left off 2 slides that I thought were on here. Must have copied the wrong one. The last slide was a budget slide. As part of the budget process, we set aside $300,000. It was put into the court admin budget to pay for costs associated with pretrial, because it wasn't appropriate to hit the sheriff's department with that expense, court services, or the various other offices. So it was put in court admin. Primarily, we're looking at electronic monitoring, GPS, SCRAM, alcohol detection, those kinds of things. I'm very pleased to report, Gary, that preliminarily, we're going to be well under that budget. We will wait and see, but I can tell you unequivocally, in the month of December, we spent a whopping $3,000. Oh, wow. Okay? Now, Gary knows me well enough to know that I just don't spend money to spend money, so we will continue to monitor that. I will be happy to report on that. That was the one thing that we've, hopefully over budgeted for, and perhaps we need it someplace else. We'll just have to wait and see how it goes over the next several months.
Use it for all that summon service.
Yeah, use it for, actually I am using it for some summon service. So that's the information that I had. If you have any questions, I know we're going to do a meeting, I believe, next month over in Courtroom 103 where our initial appearance court is held. So we're looking forward to hosting you over there. But if you have any questions, if you'd like to see anything, please.
So I thank you for putting this dashboard together. I would be curious, is there a way that you can compare it to the previous year? Just so we can see, if arrests have gone up, or if people who are, and I don't know if you can accurately compare it to people who were, who've been let out for the pre-trial fairness versus bond.
We could possibly do some numbers. The dashboard looks at a lot of codes that were specifically created for Pretrial Fairness Act events that didn't exist prior to the Pretrial Fairness Act, but we could probably put together some numbers. Maybe that's something we could try to get together before next month.
See what we can come up with.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see, how many people are being detained for certain crimes versus before the new law.
Yeah, no, that'd be very interesting. The other thing I just really, this is the single biggest change to the criminal justice system in over 100 years, realistically. And again, the relationship that the court has with the sheriff's department, with court services, obviously, state's attorney, public defenders, county admin, county finance. We put together a plan, we executed the plan, and quite honestly, we've not had a ton of issues with it, which is good. It's different, there's different impacts that are being felt, but at the same time, the wheels haven't fallen off. So that has to do with the people that we work with every day. So I just want to continue to sing, their praises.
Thank you for being prepared.
Any questions here in the room?
No, it's very thorough, thank you.
Eric, Pam, do you have anything? I'm going to take that as a no.
I'm good.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We don't have any old business reports. As mentioned, our meeting next month, February 27th, is going to be the courthouse, courtroom 103, and that's for an update on the Pretrial Fairness Act. Nothing in executive session. So at this point, just need a motion to adjourn. Mr. Kunkel, Ms. Campbell seconds, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.